Target costing is, a reverse approach to costing. What do I mean by reverse approach to costing? Instead of deciding what is the, instead of first of all calculating the cost and then adding a markup and arriving at the sales price, this approach starts with the sales price. From that, it deducts a specified profit margin that the company wants to achieve, and then the remaining cost is known as its target cost. Okay, so let's see how this calculation goes. Target costing involves setting a target cost by subtracting a desired profit from a competitive market price. In effect, it is the opposite of conventional cost plus pricing. Now, when is this method used, or which companies use this method more? Let's understand. In if the business is a highly competitive business, say for example, you are making chips, Lay's ways आप लोग बना रहे हो, you are making chips. Now, if that is the business, you will realize that Lay's and Uncle Chips and Haldiram and all of them, a typical packet is sold for 10 rupees, a bigger packet is sold for 20 rupees, another packet is so most of the players in the chips wala market sell the product at 10 rupees. That is their selling price, which means that if I am a new entrant in the market and I price the product at 15 rupees, there are chances that very few people will buy my product because everybody else in the market is selling at 10. So if I want to sell goods in the market, I will have to sell it at the same price at which everyone else is selling it. So that means I do not have full control over selling price. I have to go by what everybody else in the market is doing. So I set 10 rupees per unit as my selling price. Now, see, I'm a business person at the end of the day. At some point, I would want to make a profit, right? I wouldn't want to work without a profit. So I have a fixed profit margin in my mind, say that is 20%. So I know that for every unit sold, I have to make a profit margin of 20%. 20% of 10 is 2. So 2 rupees will be my profit. I deduct the profit. That means now I have to ensure that come what may, my cost is within the 8 rupees mark only. If it exceeds 8 rupees mark, then I will not be able to achieve the target that I have in mind for my overall profit also. Selling price I cannot change. What I can change, therefore, is the, or what I should endeavor to change, what I should attempt to change is the, or control is the cost per unit. Now, the cost is given to me as a target, hence, this method is known as the target costing approach. The first approach, which was cost plus pricing, what you do is you calculate the cost per unit. Once you have calculated the cost per unit, after that, you will add whatever markup you want to add. Say my cost per unit of production is 7.5 rupees. I will add 2.5 rupees of markup and I will sell the unit at 10. So cost plus approach is from cost to, or rather to cost, you add the amount of profit, and from there you go to selling price. The target costing system is, that you are compelled to sell at a particular selling price. So you start with the selling price first, you deduct a particular margin, and the number that is left with you is your cost per unit. And now you have to manage, or you have to control the cost within that particular number. Okay. So before we go ahead to the steps, I would just want you to read both cost plus pricing first and then target costing. I'll scroll down once you have finished reading. ठीक है, let me scroll down to the target costing bit. Now, if I do realize that, my target cost is 7 rupees per unit and I'm currently incurring 8 rupees per unit, then there is a gap. There is a gap of one which I need to cover. I need to work hard to reduce my cost per unit. For that, I might have to get in touch with my supplier and negotiate a better purchase price per 1 unit of raw material. I might have to use a different quality of raw material. I will have to control other overhead costs. And because I also know that there is something known as activity based costing, I know what items influence cost. So if I know that number of deliveries leads to a higher delivery cost, then I should work towards optimizing my delivery plan and reducing the number of deliveries and getting the same result, of course, so that my total cost per unit gets reduced. Okay, this is how you know your approach to target costing should be. एक बार पढ़ लो target costing. Okay. Now, how does a typical target costing exercise work? Step one is that a target price is set based on the perceived value of the product. This will usually be the market price, and it will not be possible for me as a business entity to go beyond this number. Why will it not be possible for me to go beyond this number? Because everybody in the market is selling at that price, and if I suddenly enter the market and set a higher price, people will not come and buy it from me, they will buy it from someone else. So that number I cannot really play around with. I know how much profit I want to earn, so the required target operating profit per unit is calculated. The target cost is arrived at by deducting the target profit from the target selling price. The cost, so uh, my target selling price could be 12,000, because say for example everybody is selling the PM course for 12,000. I cannot sell it for 15 because everybody in the market is selling it at 12. If I sell it for 15, nobody is going to come to me. So my target selling price is 12. I know that in the service industry people usually earn a profit margin of 50%. So my target desired profit is 6,000 and the target cost, so I know my selling price is 12. I know my profit that I want to earn is 6,000. So what is the target cost of servicing one student? 12,000 minus 6,000, that is 6,000. So and then my actual cost happens to be 8250. So there is a gap of 2250, 8250 minus 6,000. And then I will have to make an attempt to control the cost. I will have to make an attempt to reduce the cost and bring it up to this level. For that, different measures will have to be employed by the company, and we discussed what those measures are. So this is the long and short of the target costing exercise. We look at methods that will help us to reduce the cost gap. ठीक है. ठीक है. Now, how do you reduce the target cost gap? Target cost gap is estimated product cost minus target cost. See, right now, the actual cost in this case happens to be 8250. The target cost is 6,000. What am I planning to do in order to eliminate this, in order to reduce this? Now, alternative product designs should be examined for potential areas of cost calculation that will not compromise the quality. Maybe the packaging cost is high in some cases, so you might want to change the size of the box. Maybe you want to send it in a smaller box, so that cost goes down. Or maybe there are certain materials that you are using which are of a high, which cost high, but you might want to replace them with a lower cost material which is not of a poor quality. Maybe to get that lower cost, you will have to talk to a wholesaler, you will have to go to a wholesale market, get attractive discounts, and bring the material from there. Or can labor savings be made without compromising quality by using lower skilled workers? There are certain areas, which for which it's okay to have non-skilled or unskilled workers. But if you want to do specialized jobs, say for example, you are in the baking business, then naturally people who do the baking, they should know how that activity is done. So there substituting someone might not be the best option. Can productivity be improved, for example, by improving motivation? Labor cost is high because the idle time is high. Now, idle time is high because people don't see a lot of, they don't have a lot of incentive for working on the floor right now. Could you do something to improve their productivity? That could be a way. Can you increase production volume to achieve economies of scale? Maybe can you have any savings in transportation cost and input material? Can part assembled components be bought in to save on assembly time? Uh, so can you have some semi-finished products brought in already, or can you make sure that the time spent for moving from one process to another is reduced? Something like that, which will basically help you to keep a control on the overall cost. So these are just some of the illustrative examples. There are a lot of other ways also which you will have to use in order to control the cost. Okay. So have a look at these ones. And a key aspect of this is to understand which features of the product are essential to customer perceived quality and which are not. This process is known as value analysis. So when I'm offering a product, when I'm selling something, say for example, I am selling this Dettol ka hand sanitizer. I'll have to see in this bottle which are the features which are necessary for the customers and which are not. What do they place more importance on? Somebody says, "Arey, remove the sticker here." There's a sticker which says Dettol and blah blah blah. They are saying remove the sticker. But the company cannot do that because unless you write Dettol, there is no recall value, right? People will not know they are using Dettol and somebody else might take advantage of that. But there is a cap here and it has a small hole in it. Maybe you want to use a different type of cap so that this cost is minimized, something like this. So the product design might have to be altered. And what the business will have to do is they will have to know ye sare features mein se which is that feature which customers value more. That feature they will keep, something that the customers don't value, that feature they could remove. Attention should be focused more on reducing the cost of features perceived by the customers, not to add value. So, just quickly read through the points and then we'll look at one question, interesting question. Okay, chalo. Let's have a look at one question. Quite an interesting one, by the way. Now, what is the requirement? What is the target cost of the polymer used in the manufacture of printer? Assuming that target costing principles are adopted, what is the maximum selling price that companies C can charge per digital camera? Company C is currently considering expansion into manufacturing two new products, a printer and a digital camera. Company C normally uses a pricing policy of a 10% markup on standard prime cost on its product. Standard prime cost. What is prime cost? If you remember the cost sheet that we had done, prime cost is the total of all the direct cost associated with any item. However, as both the printing and camera markets are highly competitive, the finance director is considering using a target costing approach but wants to retain the same markup. Okay, same markup he wants. The maximum price the market will support is 200 per unit of printer. 60% of the direct cost of each printer is expected to be polymer. Okay, 40% of, so there are two parts to it. There is a camera and then there is a printer that is given to you. So your analysis should be for two separately. So पहले printer करो, then we'll go to digital camera. The maximum price the market will support is 200 per unit, and company C usually uses a pricing policy of 10% markup on the standard prime cost, and it is planning to use a target costing approach but wants to retain the same markup. Okay, let's talk about camera first. Cost, add profit. I'm going to say markup of 10% and sales. Cost 100, 10, 110. Okay, these are my assumed numbers. Assumed actual. Okay, so on a cost of 100, the markup is 10. Markup is always calculated as a percentage of cost. Okay, the selling price becomes 110. What is my actual selling? The maximum price that the market will support is 200. So I should write 200 here in front of the sales price row. Okay, now I have to maintain the same markup. So what will be my target cost? My target cost in this case will be, oh, this is for printer, sorry, my bad. This is for printer. What will be the cost here? 200 into 100 upon 110. 181.82. How is 181.82 calculated? 181.82 is 200 into 100 upon 110. That gives me 181.82. This is basically my cross multiplication. 200 is my target selling price and 181.82 is my target cost per unit. Okay, just make sure that you know which is which. This is my target selling price. This is my target cost per unit. And the 60% of direct cost of each printer is expected to be polymer. We know the total cost that we have arrived at, the total target cost, and now we need the uh, cost of polymer. Okay, so polymer is 60% of total cost. Okay, so what is the cost of polymer? 181.82 into 60%. How much will that be? It will be 109.09. This is the polymer cost. Okay, target costing reverse approach. Now, assuming that target costing principles are adopted, what is the maximum selling price that the company C can charge per digital camera? Again, let's now see the data that is given for digital camera. Okay, 40% of the direct cost of each digital camera is expected to be software. The minimum price that the company C can source the software necessary to make one digital camera is currently $76, which has been built into the budget. On this basis, Company C has determined that the cost gap between the budgeted cost per digital camera and the target cost per camera is 23.7. What they are asking you to calculate is they are asking you to calculate the maximum selling price. Okay, now Company C has determined that the cost gap between budgeted cost and target cost is 23.7. So let's at least, factor in this part. Okay, the target cost gap. What is the target cost gap? It is estimated product cost minus target cost. Okay, now they are saying that the target cost gap is 23.7. What is the estimated product cost? Do we know at this point? No, we don't know. We'll have to work around these things right now. So let's see if we can work around these things. ठीक है, अब देखते हैं इसको. 40% of the direct cost of each digital camera is expected to be software. The minimum price company C can source the software necessary to make one digital camera is currently 76, and the 40% of the direct cost is expected to be software. ठीक है, what is the cost of software? 76, and 40% of total cost is software cost. So total cost will be 76 upon 40. Writing it here, 76 upon 40%. This is my total cost. 40% of the direct cost. 40% of direct cost. Let's use the words that they have used. Let's not make it into something else on our own. Direct cost is 76 upon 190. That is, sorry, 76 upon 40%, which gives you a number of 190. This is the total direct cost, which has been built into the budget. And the target cost gap is 23.7. Okay, 190 is the estimated product cost and target cost gap is estimated production cost minus the target cost. So 23.70 is 190 minus target cost. So target cost is 190 minus 23.70 is how much? 166.30. This is my target cost. And what is the maximum selling price that the company C can charge per digital camera? For all the products, its current policy is that it wants to have a 10% markup. Right. So let's calculate that. Target selling price is prime cost that is direct cost plus markup of 10%. So 166.30 plus 10% of 166.30. Tell me, how much will it be? It will be 182.93. This is how the target selling price is derived at. Okay, have a look at, read the question first, I would say. एक बार read the discussion on digital camera and then I'll show you the working of digital camera again. Okay. Now that you have read the question requirement, read the calculations for printer and for camera both. Read both carefully. Okay. This is a discussion on margin markup, but we have already done it. Let's have a quick view of the concept of value analysis. Value analysis is a technique in which a firm's products and maybe those of its competitors are subjected to a critical and systematic examination by a small group of specialists. They can be representing various functions such as design, production, sales, and finance. Value analysis seeks to close the cost gap by asking of a product the following questions. Does it need all of its features? Can a usable part be made better at a lower cost? A cost advantage may be obtained in many ways. Example, economies of scale, the experience curve, product design, innovation, and the use of no frills product offering. Each provides a different way of competing on the basis of cost advantage. So, in case of target costing, value analysis means identifying what are those features which, in the eyes of customers, add value to the product and which they consider absolutely essential, and what are those products and what are those features of a product which, according to them, do not add any value to that particular item. Say, for example, you're talking about a typical MACD burger. Okay. Now, the company is in one burger, they are adding two tomato slices. The question is, will people consume the same number of burgers if instead of two slices we add only one slice of tomato? Because if we do that, we are saving on the raw material cost. So you will have to see whether it needs all the features, as in, does it need two slices of tomato? If it doesn't need two slices of tomato, then you don't need to add two slices. You can do away with one slice and have only one. So that is one approach. That is one approach of how you look at economies of scale. Sorry, that is one approach where you consider whether a particular part is essential or not, and then you remove it if it is not required. Or can a usable part be made better at a lower cost? Say, for example, the buns, the that are used in making the burger. If you purchase it from an outsider, it is costing you 5 rupees per bun. But if you make it internally, if you make it in-house, it will cost you lesser. So the question is, do you need to source it from an external supplier, or can you make it in-house? Because if you make it in-house, you are saving cost. So you will have to do a comparative analysis, and then that will help you in controlling the cost and bringing it within the target cost range that has been decided. A cost advantage may be obtained in many ways. Example, economies of scale. What are economies of scale? Economies of scale is basically the cost savings that you get, the cost savings that you arrive at when specifically you make more units of the same product. For example, when you make more units, naturally you will need more raw material. When you need more raw material and you are purchasing it from a wholesaler, you will you will be able to negotiate a better per kg rate with him because you are buying in bulk. So something like this helps in reducing the total cost. Then the experience curve. See, when you do more and more, when you do the same activity over and over again, naturally it leads to a reduction in the overall time that is taken to do that activity. And when there is a reduction in the time that is taken to do that activity, naturally the labor cost will get saved. So there are multiple ways in which a cost advantage can be obtained. They have spoken about four types of value. The first one was of which is cost value. This is the cost incurred by the firm in making the product. Okay. This is the cost incurred by the firm making the product. Okay. Exchange value is the amount of money that consumers are willing to exchange to obtain ownership of the product. That is the price that they are willing to pay for a product is known as exchange value. What is use value? This is related entirely to function. Example, that is the ability of a product to perform its specific intended purpose. For example, a basic small car provides personal transport at a competitive price and is reasonably economic to run. Instead of a big car, see, if the moment you move to higher end cars, naturally the petrol cost and all of these would increase. A small car would not necessarily have the same problem, and you could make the car run with a lower petrol cost also. And the last one is esteem value. This relates to the status or regard associated with ownership. Products with high esteem value will often be associated with premium or even price skimming prices. Price skimming prices, again, price skimming is a pricing strategy. And how is the price skimming strategy used? Or what is its basic utility? See, there are certain products whose, like for example, iPhone right now, maybe for your generation, iPhone is not such a big deal because like everyone has one. But for us, owning an iPhone was considered to be a matter of luxury, or it was considered that you have finally achieved something in life, which is why you are using an iPhone. So there is a certain value, a certain social status that people might associate with products of a high price, products like the iPhone, and that is the esteem value. So when I'm talking about target costing, I have to understand what is it that brings value, or what is it that people associate value with. And once you have identified that, then it becomes easier for you to remove those features or those aspects which, according to customers, have no perceived value. Now, one last part in the whole target costing exercise. What is that? What are problems with target costing in service sector? Again, you might have multiple choice questions being asked from this part. Section C questions are not asked from specialist cost accounting techniques, so that part won't come. But multiple choice questions में तो आता है. Okay. The intangibility of what is provided means that it is difficult to define the service and attribute cost. Inseparability or simultaneity of production and consumption, heterogeneity, perishability, and no transfer of ownership. So these are basically issues which are there with the service sector in general. The manufacturer of a tangible product may never see the actual customer. Customer often must be present during the production of a service and cannot take the service home. No service exists until it is actually being experienced or consumed by the person who has brought it. I'm sure you will agree that watching a lecture in the class is different from watching it as a recorded form on YouTube. And attending a lecture face to face is again a very different experience than watching the recording. See, the service that I'm performing here is in a lot of ways a one-time service. If you ask me to recreate what I did yesterday, I might not be able to do it. Maybe in the next class, I will take more time for target costing topic. Maybe for many reasons. So you cannot recreate that. And the services are never homogeneous. They will change depending on situation. You cannot again have very specific defined benchmarks the way you have for products. Like, if you are manufacturing chocolates, you know that one bar of chocolate, the weight should be so and so, the ingredients should be XYZ. But in case of service sector, it is difficult to define that. Now, the services are also perishable in nature. The unused service capacity from one time period cannot be stored for future use. Service providers and marketers cannot handle supply demand problems through production scheduling and inventory techniques. And no transfer of ownership. Services do not result in the transfer of property. The purchase of a service can only confers on the customer access to or right to use a facility. When I'm talking about service sector, what I intend to say is that you cannot own me, neither can you own the service. You can only experience the service, which is why the perception is different in everyone's mind. And applying target costing in such a scenario might not be the most ideal thing to do, because there is no heterogeneity. You cannot define key to make one class of target costing. This is the amount of time that should go in. This is the amount of internet that will be used, XYZ. Hence, if the units that go into production are not defined, it becomes difficult to define the cost parameters. And therefore, target costing by itself becomes a difficult exercise in the service sector. Okay. So, that was the basic idea behind target costing. Now, there are a couple of techniques more that we are going to study, not in the specialist cost accounting techniques. And after that, we'll be doing 10 multiple choice questions together from section A. And there will be there will be two section B questions apart from that, which I will be doing. That is, where that is the overall target that we are looking at. Okay, so we are done with the discussion on standard costing. I'm going to give you some questions to solve on your own, and I'm going to solve those questions for you. Don't worry, ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं सिर्फ आपको बोलूंगा. I will be solving all of those questions. So don't worry about that part. Let us now move on to a discussion of life cycle costing.